Okay. Welcome back to One SAF. Guys, second season. Longly awaited for. My name is T and I'll be your host today. And the topic for today is harsh realities. I don't know about you guys. I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
More than excited.
Best episode. Let's
go. Ready.
Yeah, I hear that. So the topic about today, I just want us to really look at where we are as a nation, how we got here, and what can be done. Okay, so that's how we're going to break it down. So first thing first, I just want to go back in time. Forget color, forget race, forget everything. Let's just go back in time as human beings. Right? How did it work? Was it the same in terms of tension? Did we have wars?
Boy, if we're going back, so you said forget race, forget culture, forget all that, yeah.
Forget
it was tribal. It was tribal blood. There's tribes of people. And within that tribe, you knew yourself because you knew where you were from. You also knew there was a hierarchy. You also knew there was a system. And that was all put in place to make sure your tribe, not you, but your tribe survived. Because your tribe mattered more than another tribe. And that other tribe, if you couldn't work with that tribe, they would become your rival. And so we bring on warfare. Within that tribe, you also had a sense of belonging. You knew exactly where you belonged, and you knew whoever you saw within your tribe were your people. Right, so there was no discrepancy. There was no discrepancy. So yeah.
I like that. You brought in tribe. That's a good point.
I'll take it further back than that, to be fair, and I agree. And I'm glad to be back as well, season 2. If we take it back furthest to the furthest you can take it back, for me anyway, this is a personal thing. You have to go to where it all started, from a biblical sense, and the same things applied. Like there's an old Caribbean saying, like if you don't listen, you must feel. But that came from somewhere, and to be fair, that came from the Creator. And the harsh reality in them times was, if you don't listen or obey or worship or follow certain laws, then you will ultimately suffer, die, be on the wrong side of the sovereign, the authority. So for me, as an opening, that's how life has been from the start of humankind. Like there's always been a system, just kind of echoing back to what Kay said, there's always been a system in place of structure and order. And it's then been down to the humans involved to take action.
So Kay and MJ, you brought in 2 things there. I like that. There's tribal, Kay, you brought in. That's a very good point. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But also I like that harsh reality you brought in, Ems, because that's something we need to actually put under a microscope and talk openly and honestly about this, because this is where we are. Now, if we're going to build, we need to build on a realistic view.
For me, it's like it goes right back. It goes right back. We were given a system. We were given a governance. We were given laws. And then greed popped up. And we have all these situations and collisions and wars and fights against each other. So that for me, we've been taught, we've been shown, and for me, in my personal opinion, we haven't listened, but we've felt. Whether that's feeling through our forefathers leading into what we have now, it's time now to start learning.
I like that.
And I think back, when I think back and the harsh realities of before modern day civilization, I did have tribe. That's what I wrote down in my notes. So it speaks to Kay's tribal note. But I also had expectation. And I believe further you go back in time, the expectation of what it means to be a human changes. Being a human, be it in your race or your tribe, your nation, be it in your gender roles, be it in your knowledge base. And I think what has definitely changed and what how was before, you was expected to be a what's the word? A asset to your community. You were expected to do something to better your community, no matter
Say
how
that
big.
again.
Yeah,
Mind you, say that again.
he was expected to be an asset to your community. No matter how big or small your role was, he was expected to play your part, which I think we kind of lost coming forward.
Level.
So good points from everyone there. So I just want to share a little story. Okay, it's not actually so it's based on a film that my dad made me watch many years ago. Right, and I just thought about this when we was discussing this topic. There's an African series called The Gods Must Be Crazy. I don't know if you guys have heard about this.
No, I heard.
And basically what it is, they film these bushmen in the wild, right? Bushmen, they're found in the Kalahari Desert in Botswana, Namibia side. Yeah, that's in Africa. Now, when they're filming this film, they were just going through how they live their life. This in the most simplest way out there. They didn't own anything. So there was nothing in their family group, in their tribe, that belonged to a certain individual. It was for everyone, right? They lived right in the desert,
Okay.
So they shared everything. They didn't know a difference between a Monday and a Tuesday. Yeah.
Wow.
And how it then starts, this guy is flying his plane over them, and then he throws a Coca-Cola bottle. Yeah. And this thing drops. Now it's the hardest thing they've seen. It's like clear water. They didn't know bottles existed. And then they start using it as a tool for different things. Now, because it was one, it caused a lot of conflict among them. Because now all of a sudden, everyone wanted to use it at the same time, right?
Wow.
It then created so much issues in their tribe that one of the tribal leaders decided to walk to the end of the earth to throw this thing away, because that's the only way he knew how to get rid of it. They tried to bury it, and because there was blood on it where someone had got bottled, so bottling people has been going on decades. Yeah. So, but the animals like the hyenas would smell the blood and dug it up, so it would come back to them again. He tried to throw it in the air, it just fell back on it again. So he was like, right, okay, to get rid of this, I'm going to walk to the end of the earth to throw this bottle, right? Why am I saying this?
That's deep.
I want to touch on what you said there, S, about being given governance, and also what it created after. It created greed, right? From something they never knew existed, never wanted, it just got thrown on their laps, and then all of a sudden they needed it. Everyone needed it, and it caused issues among them.
And the thing is, you know what that speaks to me on T, yeah? That saying where people say sometimes less is more. Yes, you know what I'm saying? Because they had everything that they needed, but the additional didn't actually add to them. It took away their previous values and their previous love for one another. That's that story that you just said, and I know why you said it, because that's so relevant today and might be a solution that we haven't tried as a people. That's deep.
Exactly.
Thanks for sharing that though, man.
I urge viewers and listeners, look it up. It's called The Gods Must Be Crazy. It's way back in the 80s. It's actually good. It's like a comedy. It's quite insightful when you actually look at it. And then if you try to apply it on what's going on now, you actually see how it makes sense, everything that's going on. Because now in our modern day society, all I care about is my family. That's it. No one else.
And just to say as well to you, that's nothing special. Like when people come out and say, I look after me and my own, you're supposed to look after your own. How is that something, one, unique, and two, special? That's not an exceptional thing to do, to look after your family, to look after your friends. That's not exceptional. It's expected. So the community side of it is that it's about us, those that walk within your circle, and those that are linked to your circle, even though you may not know them. So what you've said just then, and what I've said in terms of it might be a solution that we haven't tried, that's definitely food for thought, man.
100%. So just to recap on that, so we touched on tribal, harsh realities, and then obviously the governance that we got given, and then obviously the fallout from that. But wars have been through generations upon generations. You go in, Ems, you talked about biblical times. Yeah, the Hebrews and the Jews. You had these wars, conflicts going on left, right, center. They've been there from way back when. But now they're just more sophisticated now because we've modernized everything. However, let's drop that for a minute, and then let's say, as we are all mammals, right? Let's look in the animal kingdom now. How does it work? How does the hierarchy system work?
For me, there's a hierarchy system. The circle of life, there's an order of things. You know, let's take a pride of lions, for example. You'll have the male. It's more times the females that go out and do actual hunting and things like that. It's the females that teach the young the ways of living, the ways of surviving. You know, but stripped back to its simplest form. Do you know what I mean? But the strongest will survive. We have to do this, not because we want to, but it's a thing of necessity. But there's also a balance. It's a beautiful thing when you take it in and encapsulate it all. It's actually a beautiful thing to watch and see how they do it so simply. But apart from the interference of the human race, they do it so well. So well. And that's something that we can take on moving forward as a people.
Yeah, 100%. I think with the animal kingdom, it's very simple. That's very simple, but and also there's crossovers. But within the animal kingdom, there's an understanding between different animals. So using what S said in terms of like having lions, and let's add other animals, I don't know, zebras, giraffes. There's a clear understanding, even amongst animals, that they are different between all the animals. They know, like if you've got a pride of lions or a herd of whatever, they know what type of animal they are, or mammal, what they are. They know what they are, and they know what they can do, what they can't do, what to avoid, what to kind of get involved in. But another fundamental thing is they normally stick together. Each animal group, well, most animal groups, like if we're talking about kind of land animals, etc., they sit together. Also, they evolve together, or they have the ability to evolve. And also there's an accepting of each other's strengths, weaknesses. So it's kind of like the circle of life. I know it's a funny thing to say, but the whole ecosystem, apex predators, that all comes into it. There's an understanding even amongst the animal kingdom, and this is without any dialogue.
Yeah, there's a lot we can learn from the animal kingdom, for sure. But I think for me, the greatest difference, and it could be to our detriment as human beings, is the choice of free will. I think that really what separates us from the animal kingdom or from our animal state is that choice of free will. And that has led to, as I say, or as you said earlier, a lot of greed, which led to a lot of wars, etc., and fighting for power. Instead of working with each other, which is the way that it's meant to be, we want to work against each other, and I need more than you have, and you can't have what I have. Whereas in the animal, it's okay, if this is the natural progression of life, this is what it is. If not, we can coexist together. If we all need to drink from that watering hole, we all gonna have to drink from the watering hole, and no one can really dictate what goes on. So I think that's the biggest correlation and differentiation.
Quick question on that. Do we have free will? Do you guys think we have free will?
Yeah. And in terms of the choices we make on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I agree. We do have free will, but not about consequence.
I do believe in a essence of calculated choices. I think it's a little bit more scientific than that, in terms of our free will is still limited to our patterns of behavior, if that makes sense, to our conditioned way of thinking. But I think we do have free will, but within constructs. And then someone will argue, well, if it's within a construct, then how is it free on will? So I think that's one of them questions, like, what came first, the chicken and the egg type situation. Will be here forever. Every single point you lot were saying about what's similar, or what can we learn from the animal kingdom as we are mammals. My point of view is this, and you lot have kind of basically spoke to it very well. We are in the mindset as humans, under the mammal category, that we can all integrate, we can all live as one, and that this doesn't work in the animal kingdom, that this doesn't work in mammals, if we're specifically talking about that. And you lot mentioned to that, it's quite simple. You will never see a domestic house cat living with a Siberian tiger. They're both cats, because I guarantee you'll come back and the domestic cat won't be there anymore, and it didn't run off. So, as I previously said in season 1, when I said to the woodpecker, go and live with the woodpeckers, and the bald eagle, go and live with the bald eagles, even though you're both birds. Same with the domestic cat and with the Siberian tiger. You're both cats, but go live with your own, because that way you can survive. Yeah. In regards to humans, we actually don't follow a lot of the traits, even though we are biologically mammals, of mammals. We don't actually follow a lot of the traits. Guess what we do follow traits of? Parasites. We follow traits of parasites. We have parasitic behaviors. We migrate and enter different areas, and we take from what we can. We become hosts, or we call them towns and cities.
Jeez, it's going there.
But we become hosts to an area, and once the area is depleted, what do? We go to another area where someone else is living off that oil resource or that natural resource, and we do what? We take them out and we use that resource until it spends. And once that's done, what do? Move on to the next. What do parasites do? They live within its host until they no longer need it, usually when it dies, and then they move on. So even though we're mammals biologically, we actually follow the traits of parasites.
Level.
Boy, that's levels. That's levels. I didn't even think of that, but that's why we're here. Park that thought about parasites. It just spun me though. So it's just literally spun my thought. But let me try and go back to it. So the reason why I was asking how it works in the animal kingdom was this. I like a good documentary myself, especially wildlife. I've watched them all, right? And what you see in the animal kingdom is, even though they know the hierarchy, but when you look at prey, now you could look at deers, what they do. I was watching a documentary before where they're all together with the likes of monkeys, baboons, or it could be going down to even a squirrel. Yeah, they're all together as one. And what's their main goal is to look out for each other as prey. So there's eyes everywhere. there's ears everywhere. There's monkeys, there's baboons there, they've got good eyesight. They can spot danger from a mile away. The deers, the antelope, everything else, they've got good hearing, so they can hear anything and smell from a mile away. The squirrel is up in the tree, good vantage point. They can see from up above to down the ground. They know to work together to keep each other safe.
It's that safety and numbers thing, isn't it?
Safety numbers.
It's like meerkats, like you see, yeah, I mean, you see how meerkats run. They all scope the whole area, and they're all looking in different directions at the same time.
Exactly, and there's
You know
always one on duty. There's always one up high on duty, right?
That's that pack mentality, isn't it? It's trust in that as well. Trust.
Is that something that we've lost as humans, as a nation?
Yes.
Now, going back to when I said about all I'm worried about is me and mine, as in my blood-related family. If we lost sight of actually, rather than just worrying about me and mine, if we're together as a nation, we would be stronger as one.
Us and ours.
Exactly. And also, we can spot danger coming from a mile away and be able to do something about it.
All I can say without dropping too many names and that, look at the nations that follow that pattern of look out for our own and see how they are compared to us. That's all I can say.
There's reasons behind that. If you had a pack or pride of lions and you disperse them all in different lands or all in different parts on their once, made them not feel like lions, then their course or their future course is going to be a little bit different, and they may not understand the essence of community or sticking together, because all they would be conditioned to be or to know is that this is a singular thing. So it is me and my own, but that is literally it. When we say own, we're not talking about me and all the other lions. They would just be talking about them individual self, because they don't see anyone else or any other lion like them or a group of lions together continuously. So that's where there'd be a change in terms of the community aspect that we're kind of hovering over. There's going to be, if you've got people, or if you've got animals, or if you've got humans, whatever it is, if you've got that infrastructure in place, it's a lot easier. But if the infrastructure is not there, then you're not going to have it.
Yep. And taking that analogy further, if you were to disperse these lions throughout the world, and you're not seeing another lion looking like you're gonna integrate, and you're gonna, in a sense, lose that bit of identity that kept you together.
100.
That keeps you in a community that looks out for yours and us and others. Do you know what I mean? Because you're going into that survival mode now.
Yep.
You're closing your circles. You think, who can I trust? And that's where the waters get a bit muddy. Do you know what I mean?
What makes it worse is, on top of that, when you do come across another lion not acting the way you are, you're looking at that lion like, you ain't a lion.
Yeah.
There you go. And that is a double-edged coin. That's a double-edged coin, that is. Because you're looking at them thinking they should be thinking what you're thinking. But then they're looking at you thinking you should be thinking what I'm thinking. But when they're two different things, is there a learning to be done there, or is there a loss of identity?
And here's the sad part as well. When you see that other lion who now becomes estranged to you, you learn to love your captors more than your... I can't, man. Wow. Brother.
You're learning. You're learning to love those that put you into
that's not even
entrapment, rather than those that you came with.
No, but let's just cut it down. Like, if you have spent a whole lifetime of thinking that there's no community, there's no cohesion, and you see another lion, like you manage to kind of walk a few distance and you see another one, there's either two things that's going to happen that happens in the real world today. You're either going to acknowledge that lion and then go on your way, or you're going to think that there's some type of beef. And as a lion, you're going to have a lion screw face, which will mean there's lion on lion violence.
That internal, that you're idiot, bro. that internal instinct. It's that a lion has an internal warrior instinct. And the sad thing is, it's been conditioned out of the lion to have that warrior instinct with their captors. But on sight, it's ready to go when they come across one of their own. In this analogy, and that's a sad thing to hear for me, man. We've been on a journey during this. Like, we don't have breaks. You might hear a break from season 1 to season 2. We don't have breaks. Yeah. And there's been a lot of journey and growing and growth and soul searching and finding that we've been doing throughout. And to hear that this harsh reality be played out in the form of lion, simplified, really hits home to me and to everyone here, and possibly to listeners as well, who feel that sense of it can go two ways when I come across my own, who I don't know. It's either we nod, and that nod is an essence of, please nod back so I know that I'm safe, and so I know that I don't have to go into defense mode. And if I don't get that nod back, then what are you looking at? And then things can really spiral. And that doesn't come when we look at our captors. It doesn't come when it should, more so than our own.
Don't know if I agree with you 100% on that. Because here's my analogy, right? If we take the same concept of the lions, yeah, genetically, they're all the same, right? Yeah. Male lions and female lions, they're all the same genetically. There's no difference. Now, if you take a lion and a hyena, there's a difference there, isn't there? Yeah.
100.
Now, let's take us now. Let's go back to us now. As a people, as a nation, there is no genetic difference between myself and whether it be white, Asian, or a different race of person. Yeah, the difference. What I mean by
what do you mean by that?
There's no difference besides color. Yeah, in terms of genetics. So to me,
that's not necessarily true though.
Okay.
Muscle density, bone structure, skull shape, and all sorts. We do have different traits.
We've had
biologically
different traits due to obviously where we're placed on Earth, right? That's where we've, again, bone structure, shape, and everything else. That's come because of adaptation. But when we go to the core of it, we're all lions. Just like you could have a lion with dark mane, or you could one that score ginger kind of mane. Yeah, they're the same lions, but it differs a little bit. The point I'm trying to make is this. Now, there's a pride of lions. It's run by 2 males, right? And they run a 10-mile radius. They rule that. What happens in documentaries, when I watch documentaries most times, is you will have a gang of males who have formed a coalition, right? Whether they be from the same family or they've just met and then they decided to gang up together. And what they do, they go on and take on the male pride lions, yeah? And take over, right? If they're not ready, not in their prime, they get defeated, they'll do a runner, regroup, and make sure when the time comes, they'll strike again. Now, as a nation, this is not to say we need violence, but I'm just thinking, do we need to have that same mentality of like, okay, clearly this is not working, trying to fight someone one-on-one. We need each other as a people to actually help each other so we can defeat someone, not in a violent way. I have to stress on this, but in a way that will give us better outcomes.
I see your point there. And I believe that the coming back of a nation will naturally bring strength. And once we have a not a hive mindset, but once we have a similar goal, what that will do for us is that whenever there's an injustice or whether there's something that needs to be pushed forward for the sake of our group, our people, just like other groups and other people do in the world, then we will be taken more seriously. And here's how we get taken more seriously. We don't just come as a group of people off the street. We come as businessmen and businesswomen. We come as educators. We come as asset holders. We come as investors. We come as a group of people who have all got our own table that then sits at a larger table. We have a committee of people who have power to move and shift finance. Why? Because they only listen to finance. When you really hit someone in their pocket, they have to listen. And those who have the influence in the world to hurt people's pockets are respected the most. That's just how it works. At this moment, we can't hurt anyone's pockets who have the power to change our life or who have the power to influence our life or condition our life. So therefore, it falls on deaf ears, doesn't it? It's just like if you're sitting around and you're having a conversation with your adult friends, and then two children run in, they're like, Dad, 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 Dad. What would you say? I'm talking here. You have to wait or have some respect. You see two adults talking here. You get dismissed because there's two adults talking. Why? Because you know you're equal when you see them. Similarly, society knows they're equal when they see them, or they're greater. When they see us, we're just a rabble. We're just a rabble. People who make noise and hold billboards. And then guess what? 2 months later, we dissipate. And we go back to working for them. We go back to buying from their stores. We go back to filling our cars up with their petrol. Because we need them more than they need us right now. And that's what needs to change.
Wow. That's good, man, because that was going to be my next question in terms of where are we actually in society as a nation, as Black people? You know, and I think we can all agree we've already answered that without actually asking that question. We touched on that in season 1, where we are, our own experiences. We shared that with you guys. And viewers and listeners, you've got your own experiences as well.
And I just want to touch on as well around the position in society of Black people and why. Have a look into the strain theory. Now, without going too in depth, I want listeners to go and do some research. Have a look at the strain theory. Originally, theorized by Robert Merton in 1938. It's a sociology/criminology theory. And the theory is about pressures to commit crime. Now, this is a mixture between multiple facets. Some are institutional, some are environmental, some are conditioning. But he has a theory called the strain theory, which states that there's an element that causes pressure onto people to commit certain crimes. Now, if you expand that into our situation, there's a lot of growth there, but I'll leave it there.
That's good. Yeah, we'll add that. But for our listeners and viewers, obviously check out on YouTube. You'll see all the visuals there as well. Because that's really good point. Guys, so the other question I had on here was, can we do something? I know we've said obviously we need to work together, but realistically, can we do something as a nation to move up in position?
I think for me personally, yes, we can do something. In position, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the word positioning. I say that because, to be real, I suppose, yeah, I have to be comfortable with that word positioning, because as a nation of people, if there's a hierarchy, we're quite close to the bottom, if not at the bottom. But there's problems within our community that stop that climb. It's a mentality that stops that climb, that stops that elevation, that leveling up. Is our house in order? That's the question I pose back to them. Is our house in order? What can we do to get our house in order before trying to deconstruct other constructs that have started to oppress us or do oppress us? I think it's easy or more simple to point the finger elsewhere. And I'll refer back to right at the beginning of what I said. We had a system, we had a governance, we had laws. Yes, we were scattered as a people, but can we come back together and teach each other the ways? In-house first, like other nations do. There's been some other nations, there is no differentiation from what they've been taught or how they live now. There's a bit of an adaptation because we're living in a modern world. But yet their core values are still the same. Can we honestly ask ourselves and answer honestly, yes, that our core values are still the same?
I agree with that. Furthering on from that, definitely, in my mind, there's no shadow of a doubt that Black people we're at the bottom of the totem pole across the world. I'm talking about literally across any country, any continent you want to look at people of Afro origin, they tend to be at the bottom of the pack, even in African countries. I mean, if you really look at it, who's taken out the money out of the country is hardly the richest Black people within the country. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's from what I can see. So how do we get there? It's a mixture of social conditioning that was passed to us over 400 years, you could say. And the social constructs that put us in these positions, because it's easier for everyone if we do all the hard work and someone else takes the credit for it. And I mean, if you look through history, that's what it is. We've rebuilt civilizations, countries, industries, yet we've seen a reward from it. So yeah, that's literally how I look at that. To change our position now, when we're thinking about it, like S said, education, in-house education. For me, it's more teaching about, for the most part, the generation that's coming up under us, because I look at it, my generation and generation above us is only a ceiling we're going to be able to hit with that demographic. So I think changing the generational curse of not sharing information, not sharing knowledge that we once used to do, bringing that back into the fold is going to give us a greater fighting chance of when we get outside. We'll be better protected. Our children, our nieces, our nephews, our kin will be better protected when they step outside to help better their position.
Hear that?
I think if I was being brutally honest, I think we're being too philosophical about the question that you've asked. If I was being honest, T, we use the term nation of people as if we are a nation of people. At the moment, the harsh reality is that we're not. So my question would be to anyone that feels a certain way or feels in a similar position is, what are you going to do individually? And one of the things in the back of my mind is, well, actually to become a nation, We're talking about actually as a nation of people, we should do X, as a nation of people, we should do Y, but we're not even a nation yet. There's certain things that need to happen within the nation to have that nationhood where you can kind of feel that you're part of something, and then you can go and do X, Y, and Z. That's not the reality at the moment. The reality is, as S has mentioned, as I think Jay has mentioned, is that yes, and leading it back to the animal kingdom, and also I mentioned the ecosystem. In terms of a food chain, we're at the bottom of the food chain, whether it be socially, morally, financially, economically, humanely. I think referring back to if we refer back to one of our episodes in season 1, I think it might have been Black Lives Don't Matter, and we talk about the slogan that used to be very prevalent: no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Globally, we're still on that list. Dogs are not on that list, Irish are not on that list. So theoretically, the harsh reality is we all know as a group of men, and we can say people, and I'm sure there's other people that feel the same way, and there's other people that maybe can see our feelings. We know where we are, where we're positioned in this world. The question really that we need to kind of put out to our listeners, what can we do? And the first thing for me is actually have a sense of nationhood to become a nation. And that doesn't mean where it's war, fire, brimstone, and where people need to fear. It's just actually just to have a sense of comfort and a sense of community and a place, a standing, just like we talk about lions being in one place, or the zebras or the monkeys, whatever. They all in the animal kingdom or in the jungle, they all have their areas where they kind of sit, and they know this is my area, this is where we sit, this is where they sit. Yes, there might be a little bit of mingling in between the two, but you normally kind of come home to the same place. So that's what we need to do. We just need to have the understanding that it's not a bad thing to kind of have a sense of belonging to a certain people or nation, whatever. I'm not against kind of elements of integration, but as long as you stick to your core values and understand where you come from and don't lose that. This kind of sounds like Lion King now, but it's not. But that's where we need to actually start getting, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not trying to kind of discredit what anyone's saying, but I just feel there's, as I'm just going back to what S said in terms of kind of in-house, getting a house in order. They're the things that we need to talk about, and I don't feel there is a nation at the moment. So there's things to be done.
Yeah,
You have that feeling.
In saying that, yeah, I think we are saying the same things. We're just looking at coming at it from two different angles.
Yeah,
we don't have a nation, but yet, like, as you mentioned, we don't know what nationhood is. We have no examples right in front of our face. It's not in every day in our community. We know how our nation treat each other. Really and truly, the only examples that we have of how our nation treat each other is what we get from, let's be honest, American television and American media.
Yeah, 100. So just to clarify what I mean by that is that if something happens to a group of people worldwide, or something's caught on social media, to another nation of people, or another, let's say another religion, or another following, or another race, we can clearly see that as a nation what they do about certain situations as a nation, or we can even predict what that particular group of people, how they're going to respond or what they're going to do. What I'm trying to say is they have that nation, so they can speak as a nation. So they might go to their community centers or kind of their community hubs and talk as a community, and have community leaders that will say, right, as a nation, because we know we are a nation, this is how we need to respond. This is how we need to, I don't know, cancel this person. This is how we need to kind of make sure this doesn't happen to us, or we don't get offended like this. This is how we create a movement to make sure that people recognize that we are all in this together. So that's when I said kind of, I don't mean to like disrespect anyone. I just mean that the thought process needs to kind of be kind of just dissected a little bit more before we can say, in my opinion, the term, right, as a nation of people, this is what we need to know. We need to actually get to that feeling of nation of people then we can kind of make those moves. But a little bit more work needs to be done beforehand, as F has alluded to.
All you lot are my brothers for a reason. You got that headspace on you, man, and it's been real coming into this harsh realities for season 2. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And I generally feel that people from our nation, I believe most of us want to get to this promised land of nationhood. I believe it is within us that we desire it. There's just barriers in the way. And some of the barriers are invisible because we don't even know what the barriers are. But there's just something that stops us from venturing into that. It's like we begin to risk assess it, and then we can't come to any mitigating factors. How are we going to reduce this risk? How are we going to reduce our anxiety? How do I know that that other person who looks like me in that house is going to receive me the way I want to receive him or receive her? I don't know that. What's my experience of Black people globally? Oh, there's all this going on. There's all that going on. Well, then wouldn't it be better for me if I just try to link in with other nations that are doing better, that are seemingly more peaceable, that won't put me at harm, that's likely to be an asset to me? And so within all that and possibly more complexities, we get what we get. We get people who look like us and sound like us and want the best for us, not actually doing anything to cause these things to come to fruition. So we need to really focus in, and M, you're correct. We need to focus in on the barriers that stop us from wanting to venture out and try to find out what nationhood really is, as Jay was saying, as S was saying. And then once we find out what nationhood is, we have to drop the guard. We have to drop the guard and take a risk. If it's for the greater good, you have to take a risk. If we're not willing to put nothing on the line, you will gain nothing. You will only gain what you have. What we have isn't enough. We've said we're at the bottom of the ladder. I don't want the bottom of the ladder anymore. I want to climb that ladder. In fact, I want to build my own ladder if no one wants me to climb that one. I'm tired of trying to climb that ladder and keep getting kicked back down. So let me step out with other people who want to step out too and still want to climb the ladder, and let's build our own ladder. It might be small, but it's ours. And that comes in with what I say, love and respect. And when the word love is heard nowadays, oh, that's feminine, oh, that's soft, that's this. Well, you've been watching too much Disney, blood. Yeah? When I'm talking about love, love means I get checked. If I step out of line, so much so that I'm disrupting the build of the group, I should get checked. You okay, man? You done that last week, yeah. I'm not really too comfortable with that. Like we've discussed it as a group, and yeah, I mean, next time if you could do this and that, or if you could inform us, or if you could think twice, and me as a brother should say, you know what, brothers, man, like, blessed for coming to me and letting me know that, man. Yeah, I can see that I was a bit out of line, man. Let's get back to building this table. That's called being respectful. That's called being humble. That's called being loved. It didn't feel good, but I know I was loved. Because if I wasn't loved, my brothers wouldn't say anything. Yeah, man, carry on, man. Carry on. While they know what I'm doing is going to stumble me. I am a resource to my group. And my group is a resource to me.
So the most important thing in terms of a relationship is common ground. As long as you've got a common ground, you can always tear it down again and go back to basis. So I feel like every one of you guys, you said this here, we need to get our house in order. We need love. We need respect for each other. But I feel like what we need the most is a common ground to say, okay, this is where we are. That's why I asked about where we are in the table. what's happening in the animal kingdom is this. We know where we are. Listeners and viewers, do you know where you are? And if you do, what are you going to do to make sure you
What are you
don't
going to do
stay
about
there?
it? Mm.
Because as long as we've got a common ground of, okay, we love each other, we respect each other, and we realize our position, and we don't want to be in that position, we can make it work. But if there's no common ground, we can't. Because what's the base of our foundation? Is none.
Pain.
What I wanted to add, because especially for the listeners that we have that are not black and of other races, we want to have our own table to be able to converse with you. We come to the table as equals. You know what I'm saying? We want to share. Just because we want to build our table doesn't mean we want to tear down anyone else's table. No, we want to be able to step onto the playing field as strong as everyone else, as strong as we know that we should be and that we are, because we have a lot to contribute, and that's it, plain and simple. We're not here to tear down anyone else's table. We're here to build our table so we can stand for ourselves and do what's needed.
And that's powerful what you
100%.
100%. 100%.
And that's powerful what you say there, Jay, because I'm definitely tired of walking into the room and looking at everyone's knees. It's that simple. I want to walk into the room and I'm looking at you dead in the eye, and you're looking at me dead in the eye, because we're equal.
Mm.
Can I ask a question? And
No.
it's a new scene. I'll say I'll be the first one to say it.
Just
I'll be
because
the
you
first one to
laugh, the
say it.
answer is no. You can't say it.
I'll be the first one to say it. This might be for another podcast, but and maybe it's a rhetorical question that no one needs to answer. But if let's just forward think, and we do have that table that's all built, do you think that causes problems for other tables?
That's for another podcast.
we all know the answer to that question.
Exactly.
But
Yes, that
let's
is
have-
another
let's-
podcast.
let's
but
have the
the
listeners
question
think
is,
about that.
Sorry.
Let's have the
That's
listeners think about that, because here's the
That's one
thing,
step away
guys.
from warfare, blood.
100. Last question for me. Now that we've discussed this, we know where we are. We know what we need to do. Is racism really going to change? I mean, we've seen what's been happening last year, probably to date. Right now, there was uproar, there was demonstrations, there was looting, there was all sorts of things, right? Not just by black people, by everyone, because something happened. We all know what happened, not just to one person, to multiple individuals. But a year on, these things are still happening. In fact, they're actually worse.
I actually read since last year has been like over 800 or something police killings in the US since in the last year, since George Floyd.
You mean police killing
That's what I was about
civilians?
to say.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's the narrative, isn't it? That's the hyperbole. That's everything's being built around that. Do you know what I mean? Like, crime happens, but we only know about what's reported in the media. As a community, in your locality, you may hear of things through group chats, or when you come home to your missus, or when you go to work and you hear about this. It's grapevine stuff, but there's a truth in it. And I say about 90% of the time, you know it's the truth. Do you know what I mean? But what's not in the mainstream is not what's discussed between tables. What's in the mainstream is what keeps, like I say, the narrative going, the hyperbole around that subject of black people as victims of brutality through authorities, through state, whether that be in America or whether that be here in England. That's the narrative, and that will forever be the narrative, because it gets pushed. it gets pushed by them, it gets pushed by our own. So racism is will racism ever stopped? I don't feel so. Just the construct will change. Because at the end of the day, I think Kay said this in season 1, in order for change to happen or equality to happen, someone has to lose out. Something has to change. They can't be carrying on in the same parallel with no hurdles without someone falling over. Something has to change. Your position has to change. You're giving something up. Without discussion, without dialogue, you're giving it up.
And that's the same thing, isn't it? What Ems was saying about the food chain. If we move up in the food chain, someone is going to have to go at the bottom. But anyway, we said that's for another podcast, isn't it? Because it ties down to what we said.
Yeah. Just a quick one in regards, and it can be really quick, in regards to the whole racism thing. Like, it's like asking me, will the sun stop shining? Like, for me, that's an irrelevant question. Like, the world has developed itself over time into the current state that we have. So what does that mean? Skyscrapers are built for a reason. Train tracks are built for a reason. These are integral parts of a society that has learned to survive on itself. Racism is part of that. Society, as it grows and as it becomes modern, they naturally weed things out that doesn't buffer what they want to push forward. Why has racism stayed then? Because it's needed. It's needed. Not for us. We just happen to be the people who lose out. But for those that are winning, they need racism. They need sexism. They need prejudice. They need discrimination. Why? Because it filters out people who deserve and who don't. So when I say it's needed, not for us, damn, we would love to get rid of it. But this is why I spoke on it in season 1 when I said they love their people. They love their country. They love their flag. They love their culture. It's time for us to love ours. That's what I'm saying. We need to refocus the energy. Rather than screaming and putting up boards and saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives this and that, and spray painting everywhere, what's that going to change for you, really? You just become a nuisance to those who are in power. And those who are in power, what do they do to people who cause them nuisance? They squash them. It's that simple. So stop speaking to people who don't care, is what I'm saying, and turn that energy inward.
100%. 100%. So the main reason for this conversation, like we said at the start, was to make sure that we are on the same page here, realistically, to know what we're up against, and also to say our intentions. We mean every single word we just said. We want to make sure that our people are having better outcomes, one step away from success. That's what we're about. That's what we want. So I'm glad we had this conversation. For our viewers and listeners, engage with us. There's a few things that we'll put out there. Look out for yourself as well. Let's make sure that we're not having this conversation 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. Or better yet, let's make sure our kids are not sitting around the table and having the same conversation. Okay, so we're available on all platforms, on all social platforms: Anchor, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Apple Podcast as well. Please give us a follow, give us a like. We're literally everywhere. So give us a follow, engage with us. Like I said, if you're on YouTube, even better, you can see the visuals, and also we do add sources from where we get our information from, so it would be good to just have a look there. We really appreciate you. Season 2, we're back, guys. Let's start as we need to go on.